An embarrassing situation seems to take place here in the gospel. It was the groom's duty to provide the wine for the celebration at the wedding. And it seems that the wine has run out. And Mary notices this. And she sneaks over to Jesus and whispers in his ear, "Oh no, they have no more wine." And we heard Jesus' response, "Mom, what does this have to do with me? You were the one invited, I'm your plus one." Jesus and his disciples were also there at the wedding. And in that little moment, Mary is not simply asking Jesus to cover up a social faux pas or to preserve the dignity of the bride and the groom. Nothing like that. Mary knows that this could be the moment when things begin. And in some sense, there is that unspoken conversation that the two have. It's almost as if Jesus looks at Mary and says, "Okay, Mom, are you ready? Are you ready? Because if I do this, the countdown begins. The stopwatch, the clock begins counting down to my crucifixion. This is where it begins. If I work this miracle and reveal who I am, the path is set. Are you ready for that, Mom?" So Mary heads over to the servers and just says, "Do whatever he tells you, because this could be it. This could be the moment." And indeed, Jesus works that first of his miracles. And as he works that miracle, what we see happening here is it happens in such a way that the disciples begin believing for the first time. At the conclusion of this passage, it reminds us that his disciples began to believe in him. So he's already got disciples. He's already got people following him. But their relationship with him up until this point is disciple and rabbi. He's the teacher, and we're the learners. And that's kind of our relationship. He's got some good things to say. He's got some important things to learn. And so we want to follow him and learn these things and grow in this way. But it wasn't until this miracle happened that they began to believe in him. He's more than just a teacher. He is the Messiah. He's the one that's come to change everything for us. And then they give their lives to him. And they begin that journey down towards the cross. You see, Jesus reveals himself as the bridegroom. He's the one that provides the wine. Because the wedding that he has now just come into is not this couple over here, but it is his wedding to the human race. That I am going to join myself as God to you, the people, as my bride. And we are going to enter into this nuptial relationship. And I am now providing the wine for the celebration. It's his wedding that we attend now. And his disciples began to believe for the first time. So as I got to thinking about this and was reflecting upon this, I asked myself, when did I begin to believe in Jesus? When did I become a disciple? And as I thought about that, I realized I don't have an answer. I don't know when I became a disciple. I don't have a moment that I can point to and say, that was the moment when I started becoming a follower, a disciple of Jesus. It seems that my whole life has been marked with that as part of it, as part of my faith, as part of who I was. I couldn't pinpoint exactly when it happened. It's kind of like the miracle that takes place today. Nobody knows exactly when the water changed into wine. Was it when Jesus had the servers fill up the stone jars in the back room there? Is that when it happened? Did it happen when they ladled it out and were carrying it across the room? Is that when it happened? Did it happen when the head waiter took it and put it up to his lips, and that's when it changed into wine? We don't know. Jesus was very quiet about it. He didn't wave his arms. He didn't say magic words. It just happened. And the servers were the ones that realized it happened. And then word got out, and his disciples began to believe in him when this very quiet thing happened. That's probably how my discipleship began. But there was a moment that I can point to in my life where I say, that's where I understood my relationship with God. Because probably up until that point, I don't know if I could have put my finger on what is my relationship with God. How do I describe that? It's one of the questions that I ask my spiritual directees when we meet for spiritual direction. The first question I ask, describe to me your relationship with God. What is that like, especially in this last month or two since we met last? I remember mine became clear probably a year or two after I was ordained. And I went on retreats. And then I came back from retreats, and it was in a moment of prayer that all of a sudden it hit me like it had never hit me before, that God wanted to love me. And I experienced that. That my relationship with God, as I describe it from that point onward, is as lover. God is my intimate. God is my lover. God is my spouse. This is the one that I give everything to, that I sacrifice for, that sacrifices for me, that I do everything with, that accompanies me wherever I go, that gives meaning and joy to my life. This is my lover. And this is the one that defines now my relationship. And when I understood God in that relationship, in that nuptial mystery, it defined my relationship with him. And I think that's when I began to really believe in my relationship with God and really believe in who God is. I think each one of us has to pause in our lives and ask us one of those two questions. When did I become a disciple? Or when did I start believing? And maybe we're not able to put our finger on exactly when discipleship happened, because maybe it was always there. Maybe it's always been a part of your life, and you can't find a beginning point. But what about that second question? When did I really begin to believe? When was my heart no longer mine, but when did it belong to God? Can I put my finger on that moment? I think that's good for each of us to reflect upon and to have an answer for. Because it defines then how we approach God and who he is in our lives. And maybe you're sitting there saying, thinking, I don't exactly know. Maybe it's like that miracle. I can't still put my finger on that. Well, then that becomes a challenge for this new year. To find that moment, to approach that moment, to explore that moment. Yesterday morning, the pastoral council and I met for several hours, and we began charting out a plan and a path for people at this parish at St. Charles who want to deepen that relationship with God and to take us down 4 significant steps for anybody who wants to make that journey. And that first step is, how do I make myself open? How do I feel that relationality, that openness to receiving God in my life and to become a disciple? Step 1. Step 2, how do I encounter God? Have I encountered him in a life-changing way yet? Have I had that deep, deep conversion? Do I know him in a new relationality? Step 3, what do I do to continue to transform? What am I plugged into that keeps me growing, that keeps the faith blossoming, that keeps my relationship with God alive? And step 4, how do I bring new life out of that? How do I invite new people into a deeper relationship with God? How does that life overflow and touch others? This is our challenge. This is where Jesus didn't have disciples, but they really began to believe in him. And it's when we really begin to believe that our lives change. Because we realize this is the nuptial mystery. This is God joining himself to the human person, joining himself to us, taking us as his spouse, so that we can be loved and free of our sins. And it changes everything after that. Water was changed into wine, and then Jesus would change wine into his blood, and then that blood would be given to us and change who we are. We are constantly being lifted up and changed by God. But it has to begin somewhere. So the question that we are made to answer in this new year, in this new season, when have I begun to believe in God? And if I haven't quite got there yet, what is the first step that I will take to move me to that miracle of water changing into wine in my life?